What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Distefano, a.k.a. Christories Distefano, and this is Christories. So today, we have a fun one. We're going to be talking about the first gay president in the United States. I know a lot of people thought it was Obama. It's not. JK. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. This man we're about to speak about today, we're not 100% sure if he was the first gay president. I do know he was a senator from Pennsylvania, and I do know he definitely failed to prevent the Civil War because he was busy giving BJs. And he lived in the closet because he actually never got married. So that's sad. If you haven't guessed by now who we're talking about, it is President James Buchanan, a.k.a. President James Bukkake. We're going on a gay journey. Today we're going to be talking about gay President James Buchanan. Now, who was James Buchanan? He was born April 23rd, 1791, very gay month, in Cove Gap, Pennsylvania. Yeah, he loves a gap. He was the second of 11 children, okay, born to James Buchanan Sr. and Elizabeth Spear. Buchanan grew up on his family's farm. Okay, he was a farm boy, had a good education, private tutors, local schools. He went to Dickinson's College, because that's what he loved. Hey, give us some Dickinson. Where he joined debating societies, which is, it's cool. You debate, talk about this, that. He graduated college at 18. Whoa, Greta Thunberg. Studied law, he became a lawyer. And during the War of 1812, which was, War of 1812 was the second war we fought with the British. A lot of people don't know about the War of 1812, but we will do a Christories on it. Buchanan served briefly in the Pennsylvania militia. Although he didn't see active combat, he did make a lot of new friends. Listen, sometimes an army needs a good fluffer. Now, after the war, he went on to start his political career, okay? He was served in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives from 1814 to 1816. He became very involved in local politics, state politics, and he supported the Democratic Republican Party, okay? So back in the day, the party, they used to call it the Democratic Republican Party. So I'm like, are you Democrats or Republicans? By the way, back in the day, there was only two parties, the Democratic Republican and the Federalist. The Federalists supported strong federal government and centralized power. Dem Repubs favored states' rights and agrarian interests, like they wanted, it's all about farms and shit. James Buchanan, he had a friend early in life that he met as a lawyer. Her name was Anne Coleman. This is 1809. She was 13 and he was 17. Unless they're going to be BFFs. Nothing happened. They just met. The families would socialize, whatever. Anne Coleman was the daughter of a very wealthy iron manufacturer from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who probably didn't like gays too much. Hey, I'm an iron worker. Dada had a lot of money. So fast forward to her being 23, he's 27, street legal, and the two started to kind of date. They called it courting, date. And then they got engaged in 1819. During their engagement, though, Buchanan kept busy with work. People noticed he really wasn't very affectionate towards her. Every time they'd kiss, he'd go, ew, gross. The town gossip was that Buchanan was only marrying Anne for her father's money. So, which could have been true. That could absolutely have been true. Listen, maybe that's what it was, or maybe he was cruising for cock. I don't know. I feel like a James Buchanan sometimes. So there's this one story where, James Buchanan goes on this business trip after their engagement. And then when he returns, he didn't go straight home to his wife. Because these aren't like weekend business trips. When you're traveling back then, you're gone for like months. So he didn't go straight to see his wife, Anne. Instead, he went to go see his close friend, William Jenkins. And he thought, maybe I'll just hang out with, little Willie Jenkins for a little while. But then when he showed up and William Jenkins' wife was home, he was like, oh, wrong house. Bye. That's not what I am. I'm not saying I'm bye. I'm just bye. Toodles. And he left. And then Anne was upset by this for whatever reason, it says undisclosed reason, but it's like, we know why she was upset by this. She breaks off the engagement and then she died later that year in what a lot of people said was a suicide. Okay. And nobody knows what happened. If you ask me, I personally think she was going through James Buchanan's suitcase and she found butt plugs in a Barbra Streisand CD. And then that's gay. But no, I'm kidding. But she did kill, she committed suicide, which obviously is sad. You never want to see anyone commit a suicide, not good. But then because of that, Buchanan never got married, and he remained a bachelor his whole life. Now, that doesn't necessarily, obviously, just because you didn't get married and you're a bachelor doesn't mean you're gay. It's just like, maybe his ex, his fiance killed herself. That traumatized him. And he was like, I don't ever want to be married. I just don't ever want to be with a woman again. And the only way I can feel comfort is in the arms of a man. I get it. All right. So let me take you back in time to tell you what's going on in the USA. We love doing that here on the Christories show. It's 1856. Oh, my mom would be born 100 years later in 1956. And she also gave birth to a gay son. 1856. And there are 31 states in the USA. California had just been admitted to the Union, and the country was expanding. Manifest Destiny was alive and well during this time, meaning we kind of felt like the United States feels like we have every right to just keep expanding. Everything on this continent is ours. Manifest Destiny. So, Manifest Destiny is the belief that the destiny or duty of the United States to expand across the North American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. So basically, this is our land. Deal with it, Native Americans. As we're expanding, laws are changing, political parties are changing. The way people were making money was changing too. Another thing that was changing was moral issues, okay? In the 1850s, the concern about slavery was a big, big factor. People were starting to realize, like, this probably isn't good, right? And we were like, yeah, this hasn't been good for a very long time. So there were two political parties at the time. Remember, we had the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was led by James Buchanan, one of these two major political parties in the U.S., strong base of support in the South. The Democrats back in the day, they were the South, baby. And, the parties are like kind of flipped now. But back in the day, the Democrats were, states' rights, limited federal government, and they wanted the expansion of slavery into new territories. They were all about that. Republican Party, the other major political party in the U.S., they were anti-slavery, okay? They were anti-slavery, brought together various factions, that were opposed to slavery. They did not want slavery. That's why you hear even today, Donald Trump will always be like, that's the party of slavery. The Democrats, they're going back to this time, and it's obviously bullshit and they're leaving parts out. But just so you know, when you hear modern day presidents talking about it, it's coming from this, where the party's just flipped. Another big thing, the Democratic Party, they limited federal government intervention. So the government couldn't really get involved, which I kind of like. I don't want the federal government getting me involved. I don't want you involved in my business. So slavery is a huge issue, for the two big reasons. The two biggest things with slavery are it's morally inhumane, first and foremost. You can't have people as your property, no bueno. And also voters, okay? Here's the thing. Who were the only people that could afford to really go to the South? Wealthy people, because they're the ones that own the slaves and own the farms, and that was the economy back then. So they had mad money, so that they knew this vote was going to be very uneven. So the Republican Party knew that if slavery expanded into these new territories from Manifest Destiny, it would increase the number of slaves in the country. So that's not good. And this would give more political power to the South, where slavery was common. So by opposing slavery in the new territories, the Republican Party, the good guys, was also trying to prevent the South from gaining more political power and influence in the country. So the Republican Party is pro-free labor, meaning not like they don't want slaves, meaning like they're saying you should be free to charge whatever you want for your services and not enslave people to get your work done. We don't want that. But your boy James Buchanan, a.k.a. James Bukkake, he was a Democrat. And again, remember, Democrats, it's not how it is today, okay? It's the opposite. So Democrats back then, Democrats were the bad guys and Republicans were the good guys. And I'll say much hasn't changed. Kidding. Vote for who you want to vote for. Now, Buchanan had a great resume. Listen, the thing is, Buchanan, the gays, they know how to sell it, sister. Andrew Jackson made Buchanan the minister to Russia in 1831, where they don't really like gay people over there. 1834 to 1835, he served as the U.S. Senator of Pennsylvania. 11th President James K. Polk named him Secretary of State in 1845. He helped negotiate the Oregon Treaty with Great Britain. Then from 1853 to 1856, he served as the Minister of Great Britain under Franklin Pierce. So the guy had a resume. A lot of presidents love to hire him. He was working. He was an institution down there in Washington, D.C. And he was just killing it as a politician. And he wanted to campaign to be president. And he started this in 1856. He's like, I should be the president. I'm better than all these people. And I know all their little dirty, dark secrets. Okay. I have gay intuition. And he did well playing both sides. Okay. He really did well. I mean, this man, he hides in the closet for a living. He knows how to listen. While Buchanan personally opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories, he also defended the rights of Southern states to uphold slavery within their borders. He argued that the federal government should not interfere at all with the institution of slavery where it already existed, and he sought to reassure Southern voters for he would protect their interests as president. Okay? So basically, he's saying, like, look, if they've already had slaves, you can keep your slaves. But the new places were going to be like, we'll make a decision later. But he just really wants to say doesn't want to lose the Southern vote. So he's like, hey, I'm not going to take your slaves away. No, I won't take them away. I'm not taking away American jobs. That's how presidents do. So the United States presidential election of 1856, James Buchanan, Democratic candidate, ran against John C. Fremont, the Republican candidate, and he won. James Buchanan wins, popular vote, crushed it, everything, and he became the 15th president of the U.S., and they swore him in March 4th, 1857. So 15th president, right? So who's the most famous, one of the most famous presidents? Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president. So you're going to see how James Buchanan kind of led to the mess that Abraham Lincoln had to inherit. Back to the love life. I mean, we all love talking about him as president and the history, and it's fun, and we got to do it. But the juicy details are in the love life. That's what we're here for. That's what this Christories is about, was James Buchanan gay or not? Not that it matters, by the way. It doesn't matter at all. It's just fun to talk about. I mean, I don't care. I don't care. And I think that people back then really didn't care if you were gay or straight. That's like a new thing to be like, ooh, juicy details. Like, who cares? Be whatever sexuality you want. I'll have sex with this globe. So here's the thing. The man was a bachelor his entire life. Fine. He was the first president, only president still to this day, that never married and did not have a first lady. The only one. His niece, Harriet Lane, served as the White House hostess and performed the same duties as a first lady, overseeing the social events and entertaining guests. And she was sometimes referred to as first lady, but it wasn't. It was his niece. Now, no woman, fine, but was there a man? Throughout history, there have been many rumors regarding James Buchanan's sexuality. Now, obviously, he's a lifelong bachelor. He had close relationships with some, male friends, which doesn't make you gay. It's just like rumors. But one of the most frequently cited pieces of evidence is Buchanan's close relationship with William Rufus King, a fellow politician from Alabama who served as the vice president under Franklin Pierce, the previous president. So this guy, William Rufus King, this was the guy that they were like, he was really, really, really like kind of always with. They lived in D.C. Together for many years, letting some to believe that they had a more intimate relationship than just roomies. I mean, they were literally like, these guys are in high, political positions. They can live on their own, but they're living together, which again, doesn't mean you're gay. King never had a love interest himself. He never had a girl, which maybe they were like, maybe he's gay. Here's where it's starting to get like, where you're like, okay, Buchanan referred to King as his better half and wrote affectionate letters to him, which have been interpreted by some as evidence of a romantic relationship. Their home in D.C. included other congressmen too, most of whom were all unmarried. So you could say like, well, it wasn't, not that they were gay. It was just like it was their version of a content house. They're just all living together. Instead of, they're just making content. That's what they're doing they're not gay. It's just, they're like the Paul brothers. So Washington society, though, they began to take notice. Washington likes to talk a lot of shit. And they would call James Buchanan and William Rufus King Mr. Buchanan and his wife, okay? And they were each called Aunt Nancy or Aunt Fancy. Aunt Nancy or Aunt Fancy. When you see me in the streets, call me Aunt Fancy. Seriously, I want you to call me Aunt Fancy when you see me in these streets. Z-Biotics, folks, the maker of the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. What are Z-Biotics? They are pre-alcohol probiotics. Your first drink of the night for a better tomorrow. Engineered by a team of PhD microbiologists, Z-Biotics is a probiotic drink that breaks down the byproduct of alcohol, which is responsible for rough mornings after drinking. How do we use it? Step 1, have a Z-Biotics. For best results, make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day, okay? Z-Biotics, pre-alcohol probiotic drink, world's first and genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So if it's designed by PhD scientists, you know it's good. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions. Oh my, there's so much going on. Get the most of your spring plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/Christories to get 15% off your first order when you use Christories at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money and no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Christories and use the code Christories at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring the episode and our good times. Here's the big thing. To me, one of the gayest things I think a man can do for another man, and again, I'm saying this, I'm not saying positive or you want to be gay, I love it. I think that one of the gayest things a man can do for another man is get a painting of that man. If I walk in to your house and I see that you've commissioned a painting of another man, I would assume that you're having wild sex with this man on a nightly basis, which again is fine, support it, love it, absolutely. Yummy, yummy in my tummy. But you have to admit, a painting's pretty gay. And in the last years of James Buchanan's country estate, he hung portraits of William Rufus King in his home. And again, love a guy. I have very good friends, but if I'm putting a portrait up of one of them and I'm hanging them around my home, that's because at night when the candles go out, I'm coming all over them. I'm standing in front of them and I'm beating my meat. So here's a story. One story recounts King, and Fancy, leaving D.C. for New York, and he stayed with the Roosevelts. Shout out the Roosevelts. And he was preparing for a trip overseas. And James Buchanan writes to King, he says, "I envy Colonel King the pleasure of meeting you and would give anything in reason to be of the party for a single week." So he just wants to see his man for a week. "I am now solitary and alone, having no companion in the house with me. I have gone a-wooing to several gentlemen, but have not succeeded with any of them." So he was going around asking other guys, like, do you want to hang out? He was basically, nobody would give him any ass. He says, "I feel that it's not good for a man to be alone and should not be astonished to find myself married to some old maid who can nurse me when I am sick, provide good dinners for me when I am well, and not expect from me any very ardent or romantic affection." So basically he's saying, like, I don't want to get married to some woman that's just going to cook for me and I don't want to bang her. I would marry you. If you want to cook for me, I'm into men. That's what it is. I'm President James Buchanan and I love men. That's my campaign slogan. So he's like, he'll marry a woman for the attention, but she should expect romantic affection? Nah. It's just, and I get it. All this stuff, and again, we're just talking about it to talk about it. I love it either way for him. I love it either way for him. But your boy sounds gay. Your boy sounds gay, or as the kids would say, his sexuality is sus. So here's a big thing too. Remember I said how his sexuality possibly led to kind of the Civil War, at least Abraham Lincoln inheriting this mess of a country, is because, like I said, William Rufus King, senator from Alabama, represents the South, right? And these issues were bubbling up between the North and the South. And a lot of people think President James Buchanan didn't really do enough to prevent the outbreak of the Civil War or to prevent any of the deepening divisions between the North and the South because he did not want to upset his Alabama boo, William Rufus King. Don't forget, when your boo is like, talking to you at night in between them sheets, in between them cheeks, saying, like, I want slavery. It's good for the country, blah, blah, blah. Your brain starts to get swayed. And he didn't do anything to really stop this division. And then by the time Abraham Lincoln becomes the next president, the country's mad divided. I think that I think if there was no William Rufus King, if William Rufus King at least wasn't from Alabama, things would have swayed a lot differently. You know, like your country is the way it is today because of a gay man. And that's okay. I like it. That's why when people say, yo, the Civil War was gay, they're not wrong. It was kind of gay. So, you know, Abraham Lincoln will then become president, who, by the way, is a Republican. Okay? President you love so much, a Repubby-wubby. And he was elected 16th president of the United States, succeeding Buchanan, the gay president. And I know a lot of people say Lincoln was also gay, and that'll be for another episode, but we might have had back-to-back gay prezzies. James Buchanan left the presidential office, you know, on the brink of war. And his presidency is kind of often remembered as a failure because, you know, like I said, that big thing, he did not do anything to stop this country going into crisis, you know? He faced a lot of challenges, like every president does. The big one, the Dred Scott decision, okay, which that further increased tensions between the North and the South. And the Dred Scott decision, that's the one where the U.S. Supreme Court stated that enslaved people were not citizens of the United States and therefore cannot expect any protection from the federal government or the courts. So obviously, big problem. Again, Buchanan was just not getting involved because I really believe that he was like, yo, my man William Rufus King from Alabama, that's my boo-boo, and he'll get upset. He was in love with this man, which, again, more power to you, but also like you're kind of a dick for not preventing the Civil War. That's the thing. You can love dick and also be a dick. That's the truth. Here's the thing. Overall, though, I want to give a shout out to my man, President James Buchanan, a.k.a. President James Bukkake. You were your true self. You were your true self. You were saying, you know what? I know everyone else has a wife. I'm out here in these sheets, in these cheeks of men, and I support it. I support every moment of you being your true self. What I don't like is the pro-slavery part, okay? I'm pro-loving your male friend. I want you to be gay, absolutely, but no slaves. I don't like, you can be a sex slave to a guy, but you can't have real slaves. I don't like that. So you're a smart man. You're a forever bachelor, which represent, and you'll always be remembered as the first gay president of the United States, or at least my first gay president of the United States. So happy Pride, happy 4th of July. God bless America. Deep throat those glizzies.